All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Alberta Softball Umpires Association webinar series. This is the first in what will be a series of 3 webinars that will run throughout the course of the season. The first one is Fastpitch, legal and illegal pitching. We chose this topic because it was, in our observation, the area that we require probably the most concern around pitching from our observations from last season, which is why we've chosen it. So without further ado, we will introduce ourselves. My name is Frankie Billingsley. I am one of the co-chairs of our Alberta Softball, the ASUA education team. Kris, could you flip the slide? Are you able to do that?
Is it not doing it right now?
Nope.
Okay, just hold on. Sorry.
There we go.
There.
So, my name's Frankie Billingsley. There's a picture of me on the left part of your screen. I'm a Softball Canada Level 5 umpire that since 2011, and I received my WBSC certification in 2013. And my co-chair?
My name's Kris Hartley. I'm a Level 4 Softball Canada umpire, umpiring since 1997, and I obtained my Level 4 in 2004.
So we are the 2 people that will be responsible for your education online for the summer. Our agenda for tonight. So just a housekeeping. We have everybody muted just in the interest of time. We would like to do this in about 25-30 minutes and have questions after. If you have a question, there's a chat box at the bottom of the right hand of your screen. If you could enter the questions there, and Kris and I will answer them when we get to the question and answer period. We're going to cover the rule, go through the mechanic, what the enforcement of an illegal pitch is. Kris is going to talk about mindset and philosophy. Kris and I will both take you through some video showing some legal and illegal pitching motions. And then we're going to talk about the point of emphasis for this season from the ASUA perspective. And then, as I mentioned, we will have time for question and answers after. So to start, just in case we don't know already, we are covering Rule 6 in the Softball Canada rulebook, and we are specifically focusing on the fast pitch side. That's where we've noticed we need a lot of work. So one of the things that we thought would be really helpful to start is to talk about what the responsibilities are depending on the position that you have on the field. The plate umpires are responsible for ensuring that the pitcher takes the signal or appears to take the signal with their hands together. That they are, with the hands apart, that they are landing inside the 24-inch chute, and that they are ensuring that the pitchers are pausing. The base umpires are responsible for foot violations, stepping backwards, stepping forward, rocking motions, and leaping for under 14 and below. Now, one of the questions we got in the first seminar, which I thought was awesome and that we wanted to add to this one, what happens if you notice an infraction that is the responsibility of your partner? So as an example, if I'm the base umpire and I think that the pitcher's not pausing, you may, when you have the opportunity, so during the middle of an inning or at the end of an inning, approach your plate umpire and share, Kris, I don't think that pitcher is pausing for 2 seconds. That's all that you can do. It is their responsibility to call it. So if you raise it to their attention, then you've done your due diligence. Similarly, if you're the plate umpire and you believe that the pitcher is stepping forward, bring that to your base umpire's attention and let them be the person to enforce that. So what do we do when we see an infraction? On the first infraction, we would call time and warn the pitcher. It's really important that we communicate with our partners on the diamond why we have called time. What is the reason for the warning? We have to do that because we can't have multiple warnings for the same infraction. I think it's helpful at all levels of play to make sure that the coach understands what the warning is for. Sometimes at the minor levels, the coach will want to actually come out onto the diamond. I think that's completely acceptable. At the adult levels or national, international competition, the coaches may just ask you when they're walking by. That's fine. Whatever their comfort is, whatever their preference. On the second infraction, we would verbalize a legal pitch loud enough for people in our vicinity to hear. And the mechanic is in the top corner of the slide to show you what you would look like if you were calling an illegal pitch. We extend our left arm out at a 90-degree angle, shoulder height with our fist closed. We would call an illegal pitch after we've already had a warning. It is important to note that we will issue a warning for each different infraction. So if we have a warning, if a pitcher isn't pausing for the required 2 seconds, we give a warning. If a pitcher steps backward after the pause, it's important to issue another warning. So just because you've warned a pitcher for one infraction of the rule, that does not mean that they've been warned for everything. So you could possibly have 3 or 4 warnings on one pitcher. It's just really important to note that. So what are the penalties for an illegal pitch? Well, when a pitcher has committed an illegal action, the penalty is we have a delayed dead ball. That's what the mechanic is, because the ball is live. If the pitch isn't hit, a ball is awarded to the batter and all runners advance 1 base. It's important to note that if runners decide to go beyond 1 base, they can be put out, but they are protected to 1. If they obtain more than 1 on, like if there's a pass ball or a wild throw, they can keep those. If the illegal pitch is hit, the offensive manager has the option of either taking A, the award of the illegal pitch, which is 1 base award for all runners and a ball on the batter, or they can take the result of the play. So the example we have here is a caught fly ball that scores a run. So you can call an illegal pitch, and if the batter hits it and they fly out to left field, but they've scored a run on the play, the coach actually might want to take the result rather than taking the award. Or if they scored 2 runs, they might want to. So it's not. This is why it's important to make sure that the coaches have the option, because they can decide if they want to take the result or they can take the award. The exception to this, if the batter becomes a runner due to a dropped 3rd strike, or they hit the ball and all runners advance 1 base, including the batter, the illegal pitch is nullified and we don't give an option, because it's essentially the award of the illegal pitch has been achieved, even though you haven't actually gone through the motion of doing that. And the third point, when an illegal pitch hits the batter, the ball is dead. The batter is awarded first and all runners advance. There's no option given because the hit by pitch takes precedence.
All right, so the next section that we're going to look at is the mindset philosophy section. So as an umpire, some thoughts that can be going through your head as you enter into the game is just to kind of, when you're dealing with illegal pitches, is don't look for the pitch to be illegal. Instead, look for the pitch to be legal. There's certain things that the pitcher must do to be legal. So as long as they do that, they're fine. If they don't, then it has to be illegal. Because there's plenty of different permutations or options that a pitcher could do that would make the pitch illegal. And by worrying about what they must do, it focuses your attention a bit more. So the non-pivot foot must land on or within the 24-inch width of the rubber or in the chute, right? The non-pivot foot must land there. If it doesn't, then it's got to be illegal. Or the pivot foot must not bear weight again until the ball is released. If it does, then obviously we'd have an illegal pitch for replanting, and you'd have to enforce the ruling. The key thing there at the very bottom is that, again, that it may or may not happen every pitch. So umpires need to focus every pitch of the game, because maybe that pitcher is getting a bit tired later in the game and they're trying to get that little bit extra oomph on their pitch. They're going to take that little step forward or the little step back or whatever it might be that causes it to be illegal. And at that point, it becomes, the warning might be enforced at that point, because that's the first infraction of that, and it's the 5th inning. And they've been fined up until that point. So it's really important as umpires that we watch every pitch to make sure that they are playing within the rule of the game and enforce when necessary. Some other general little tips or tricks that you can do as an umpire is, as a base umpire, when you go at the end of the inning to quickly sweep the rubber, take a quick glance down at the dirt in front of the rubber as you're sweeping. If the drag marks from the pitcher, if it's a lower level where they must push and drag and there's a space or gap there, then obviously the pitcher's not dragging their foot or toe, and it could potentially mean that there was an illegal pitch there. Another kind of common rule of thumb is that if there's a hole or trench on the mound from the pitchers digging it out as they did push and drag, and the pitcher keeps their toe pointed downwards through the whole process and the foot is near the ground level, then it would not be illegal. It's classified as if the ground was there and they're just dragging, but there was no dirt or ground to drag along, so we're going to let that happen. And kind of the big theme is that if you're not 100% sure, don't call it. So it's kind of like a bet your life type of call. Call it when you see it, but if you're not 100% sure, we don't want you guessing. We want you to be sure that that is, in fact, an illegal pitch that you've witnessed. So we're going to look at some categories, again, or some examples of other stuff. So this is U14 and below specifically. So your U14, U12 divisions, the lower minor ball. Pitchers at these categories need to step onto the rubber with hands separated. They need to have 2 feet on the rubber and push and drag towards home plate to deliver the pitch legally. New this year, across all divisions, is that all pitchers must have a 2 to 5 second pause where the body is stopped entirely. Last year it was a 1 to 10 second pause for certain divisions, but they've changed it so that it's across all divisions, and this was clarified by our National Director of Umpires, Jeff Whipple, in March, was that they must have a 2 to 5 second pause where their body is stopped entirely. And of course, at this level, the U14 and below, they cannot leap, they cannot step back or step forward. They must push and drag, which was common up until last year for minor softball. For U16 and above, male and female, and again, this is a change from the piloted or the rules last year, where the U16 and above males was the category. Starting this year, it's male and female at the U16 and above. The pitchers are able to, they don't have to push and drag if they don't want to. So again, we've highlighted some of the key parts through this whole process, but the pivot foot or the non-stepping foot must remain in contact with the pitcher's plate prior to the start of the pitch. Lifting the pivot foot off the pitcher's plate and returning it to the plate, creating a rocking motion, is classified as an illegal act. After they've taken the signal, the pitcher must bring their whole body to a full and complete stop with the ball in both hands, in front or at the side of the body. Of course, like we talked about a minute ago, the pause must be between 2 and 5 seconds. A moving pause is not legal, and where we see this a lot is the female youth that go to tournaments in the United States, where they allow the moving pause a bit more. We don't allow that in softball Canada. It must be a complete stop. The non-pivot foot or the stepping foot must be stationary at the start and during the pause. After that, the non-pivot foot can only move forward with the start of the pitch. Any backward movement of the non-pivot foot during or after the pause is an illegal action. So not allowed. Putting their heel down, if they start off with their toe on the rubber and their heel in the air, dropping that heel to the ground is not classified as backward movement. It's just establishing the position on the ground at that point. Pitchers can leap, land, and throw in a continuous motion. And again, the pitcher's hands must be separated prior to landing in order to prevent the replant illegal option. And pitchers must continue to step directly towards home plate with the stepping foot landing within the 24-inch length of the pitcher's plate, or the rubber, within the chute. So we're going to show you some pictures here coming up. Again, these are just still photos of various pitchers going through. So this would be an legal example. So again, she starts off fine. She starts moving forward. Okay, push and drag the whole way. Her toe is in contact with the ground through the whole motion. That would be a legal delivery. There's another one from the front view. Again, we're assuming in picture 2 that she has paused for her legal 2 to 5 seconds in front of her body, and then continues her pitching motion with the push and drag delivery that is legal in Softball Canada. Again, those are 2 examples of legal deliveries that we should expect to see at the lower level on every pitch and are still allowed at the 16 under. Here's a video of a push and drag from the side. Again, closing up, we're focusing on the footwork. Whoops. And again, totally fine. Her toe being up is fine. As she drops her left heel, the back heel, again, that is fine. That would be classified as a legal pitch. And we're going to allow that to happen.
In all age categories.
Here's another one of a push and drag of a young youth pitcher. And again, totally fine with the delivery as it plays here. Again, you notice she doesn't leap or anything like that. Kind of a push and drag. It does cut off near the bottom. But again, we're focusing more on her footwork here. Her pause is just barely good or legal. But her footwork is fine. Again, she just puts her heel down, and it's a straight push and drag forward towards her catcher. One more time. Another legal delivery of an adult pitcher, a little bit different. Again, at the women's category, you may see pitchers that leap, and you may see pitchers that don't. And again, this is a legal delivery. She's got a longer pause here, but again, everything's perfectly fine. Comes stopped, separates her hands, and moves straight forward with a push and drag type of legal delivery. So now some illegal, if you're U14 and down. and legal for U16 up. And again, the key part here is if you look at number 3, her toe comes off the ground. She's doing a bit of a leap, and that's what makes it illegal for the U14 and down. And the last violation that we're going to look at, that I'm going to talk about, is the 24-inch violation, or out of the chute. Again, with this video, we'll show it a few times, but we need to make sure that both the feet, plus there's a few other things in there, but looking mainly at where the pitcher lands. Must be within the chute, which is pretty much straight ahead. You notice this pitcher goes way out towards first base. Here's in slow motion. Her foot lands outside the rubber, outside of the chute, therefore causing it an illegal action. And again, this would be a plate umpire's call that would make this call. So here's full speed again. Where we sometimes see this is a pitcher will actually go towards the batter and throw a cross, kind of on a diagonal, like a crossfire pitch type thing, so that it starts kind of coming towards the pitcher and makes it tougher for the batter, makes it tougher for the batter to hit the pitch. And again, this is the last time here. All right. All right.
So the next violation that we're going to look at is stepping forward. This is illegal in all divisions. This is not new. This has been illegal. I just wanted to make sure you had an example. So the key here is that front foot is on the pitching rubber or touching the rubber, and then prior to delivery they step forward. That is illegal and needs to be called, and this is the base umpire's responsibility. The next infraction we're going to look at is, or do we have another example of stepping forward? So we have a younger pitcher. Stepping backwards. Again, so once the pitchers come to a complete pause, they are not allowed to move that back foot. This is illegal. So we have the pause, step back, and illegal. I would encourage you to, as soon as you see the infraction, to call the illegal pitch. And as we mentioned earlier, try and make sure that you say it loud enough for the people in your vicinity to hear, and obviously keep your left arm extended so people know that you've got a call. It's really important to do that if you're in a loud game. Another example of stepping backwards. So although we don't have pitchers on a pitching rubber, I'm hoping that you can get the idea of what we're talking about. Just wanted to give one video example of a rocking motion that would be considered illegal. We've got forward momentum and then going backwards and moving forward again. I have to say, we put this video in because we did get feedback in the first webinar that people were confused by some of the things that we were mentioning regarding a rocking motion. So I just thought we would put one video example in. I think it's important to note that in my 18 years as an umpire, I have never called an illegal pitch for a rocking motion. It's really unusual to see this. So I don't want people to get confused, because there's a lot of pitchers that will start with their back foot up on the toe, for example. And if after they take the signal and after they've paused, if they put that foot down on the ground, that is not rocking and it's not illegal. As long as the back foot does not move backwards, that's the key part. And the last infraction that we are going to look at, and the one that I think we need the most work on, is the pause or lack thereof. So this is an example of a rolling pause. Just a rolling, they don't actually come to a stop at all. This is exactly why the rule was put in place. The quick pitching takes the batters off guard. It doesn't give them an opportunity to get set. So this is an illegal pitch. Okay. So, an example of a legal. This is an example of probably a pause that's on the longer side. This is 4.5 to 5 seconds long. It's a long time, isn't it? Really important for us as plate umpires to make sure that we time going down into our set position really nicely with the flow and the rhythm that you get in with the pitcher. If you go down at the beginning of this pause, you're going to have quads of steel by the end of the game. So again, this is an example of a longer pause that is still within the 5 seconds, but just to give you an idea of how long it might seem in a game. This is more on the lower end. So this pitcher is 2 to 2.5 seconds. Just to give you just really wanted to give 2 different examples of legal on the shorter end of time and legal on the longer end of time. Which brings us one more example of a legal pause. So your point of emphasis for the 2019 season, we need to work harder as an umpiring community to enforce the pitching regulations. As I mentioned, it was observed at all levels, local right up to international last year, that this was an area that required a more consistent application across the board. The biggest area of concern regarding the pitching rule is the pause. Although this came into effect last year, the 2 to 5 seconds, it was very apparent that we weren't really doing a great job working with our pitchers locally to address it, because by the time they got to tournaments, provincials, westerns, Canadians, and even at the World Championship I was at last summer, this was still an area that pitchers were having difficulty with. And I think if we really try to work hard to work with the pitchers and coaches early in the season, they won't have as many difficulties in their postseason play. So it's really, we don't want 30 illegal pitches called in a game. But it's important for us to recognize that if we don't call it, we're really not doing the players or the coaches any favors, because they will, when they get to their postseason and they're traveling, it's going to be called there. So we have a responsibility to help educate them so that they're prepared for that when they get to wherever it is that they want to go. The reason that the pause is the point of emphasis is because rocking out of the chute, stepping forward, stepping backward, these are not new infractions. Those are pieces of the pitching puzzle that we should be very comfortable with. The pause is newer to us, and one that we would like the ASUA umpiring community to focus on. As Kris mentioned, though, if you're not 100% sure, don't call it. The pause is something that stands out when it is not a full 2 seconds. It's very noticeable, and so this is an area where if you are a base umpire and you don't think that the plate umpire is calling it, then please bring it to their attention. But remember, it is their responsibility. Once you've done that, leave it to them. But bet your life on these calls, because once you have runners on base, you are advancing them every time you call an illegal pitch. So be cognizant of that. It can be a game changer if you're in a close game, right? So, but saying that, if you know for sure it's an illegal pitch, then you have to call it. So this is the point of emphasis for one of the points of emphasis for us as an umpiring community this season. And with that,
one thing to add to Frankie's comments about helping educate. Early in the season, we need to work with them. Start of the game, pitchers have warm-up pitches. Last year, we'd have some of our men's pitchers that pitch at senior men's nationals representing Alberta, and they would be out there, not pausing or, not following the rule to the rule book standard. It's important for us as umpires is have that conversation, just a friendly conversation, a friendly reminder to the pitchers that, hey, I noticed in your warm-ups you weren't pausing long enough, or you were stepping back, or whatever it is. Communicate with them, work with them, so that, again, it alleviates the need to throw at our left arm and call the legal pitch. Because no one enjoys 20, 30 illegal pitches in a game. And again, it's a preventative officiating opportunity for you.
And all of those preventative umpiring techniques are very personal and unique to people. So, feel free to figure out what works for you. Are there any questions at all? You can feel free to enter them into the chat box if you have any.
There was one question about just with the trench situation, with the toe down or plane of ground being considered legal. Where I'm meaning that is that if there is a trench, there's going to be a time where the toe is not in contact with the ground, because obviously as they push off from the level of the ground where the plate is, it drops down. So there is going to be a momentarily disconnect with the ground as their foot falls into the hole as they do their push and drag. So we're not nitpicking with a microscope out there on that little part. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. And again, we do want to see at that lower levels, the 14 and under, we want to see the drag part. But again, as a rule of thumb, if their toe is pointed downward that whole time, you're assuming that it's connecting into the ground in that momentarily split second that it's not connected. Like I said, we're not going out there being nitpicking, micromanaging. It's kind of picking your battles on that case. And again, they're not gaining an advantage there. They're falling into the hole from the rubber.
Hopefully that...
To answer Chartier's question about giving a warning, would you announce it to the bench? I wouldn't necessarily announce it to the bench. Usually a coach will come out. Someone from the bench might say, hey, what was that for? And you might just, verbalize over to them saying, oh, no pause, or, some of that. Because then again, it allows your partners on the field to know that that's what was called, because maybe the pitcher is stepping forward and no pausing. And, as a base umpire, Frankie thought I was calling for a step, a no pause, when really I was calling out of the chute or something like that. Is also in my realm of responsibilities.
Yeah, I would do something similar. If I'm the plate umpire and I'm going out to give a warning, I would not announce it to the bench, because we would give the opportunity for the coach to come out. If the coach isn't coming out, then I wouldn't announce it, but I would do exactly what Kris just mentioned. I would make sure that my base umpire knows, Kris, warning for the pause. I wouldn't necessarily say it loud enough for the bench to hear, but if Kris can hear, if we're not in a loud surrounding, that bench might be able to hear, but if they're in the third base dugout, they wouldn't necessarily hear. So I think it's incumbent upon the coach to come out and find out. So, and some of you that are doing, I only do adult ball, so some people that are doing minor ball, you may want to actually look over and make sure that the coach is aware that you're going out to talk to the pitcher. That might signal them to come out. Or at the end of the inning, you might want to tell the minor coaches what you've gone out and ask them. The other question about rotating the hand in the glove. With that one, the key would be for me, how much hand movement are you seeing? Because really they are supposed to be coming to a complete stop. So some people can play with the ball in the glove and you don't even know they're doing it. You know, like if you see some significant hand movement, I might actually talk to the pitcher about that. So they should, so my depending on how much they're moving their hand, you can tell them, wait until you're done getting the grip on the ball and then come to a pause. That's what you might have to do with them if they are moving quite a bit.
Trevor, to answer your question about the leap delivery examples that we showed the pictures of, it was the girl in the white uniform with the blue writing. Starting last year, but modified this year to include males and females, the U16 level and higher, they are allowed to leap. So the foot does not have to remain in contact. They just, starting off, have to be, and then when they push, as long as they're moving forward, they can leap, and as long as their hands are separated prior to them landing, that's classified as okay. And their arm is starting the pitching motion, that is a fine. But at the U14 level and lower or younger, they must have the push and drag. So at U16 and above, they are allowed for both male and female this year, which is a change because last year was male only. The females had to push and drag. They've now included the females side of the softball game to allow them to do the leap.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, then Kris and I'd like to thank Kris for putting a lot of this presentation together and being a great teaching partner. And we have a list of other people we'd like to thank. There were some people that allowed us to videotape them so we could use the footage in this presentation. And the Cactus Umpires Association for the still videos and photos. And Daryl Helmer allowed us to use this platform in order to offer the webinars to begin with. So our thanks go out to him. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And hopefully one of our recordings worked so we can put this online for you to come back to if you need to reference anything, and for people that were not able to join us tonight. So with that, if there's no other questions, we will sign off. And our next webinar will be on May 27th.
It's a Monday night at the end of the month, about a month from now. May 27th, obstruction.
Yep, 7 o'clock in the night, same time, same format, and yeah, we're going to be doing obstruction. So on the last slide, we have Kris and I have our phone numbers and our email address. Please feel free to phone, text, or email and let us know if you have any follow-up questions or follow-up feedback. And lastly, if there's anything regarding obstruction that you'd specifically like to see or taught in the presentation, please let us know. And lastly, if there's other topics that you'd like to see in the future, I think we have the first set covered, but We are always looking for future development, so if there's any feedback you have for us about that, we would be happy to receive it. And with that,
or if you have any video or anything like that that you'd like to, that you've come across, like from during your umpiring tournaments and stuff like that, or you see something that you'd like to share with us, we'll gladly take it. And again, that email address, education@asua.ca, comes to both of us. It's forwarded off to us, and we can use some of the stuff for some of our future webinars. So thank you again for attending, and have yourselves a great evening, and hope to see you around the ball diamonds.
Good night, everybody.